Well, this may sound silly, but David tells me he's seen a spaceship.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Huge thanks to the subscribers again. My subs are going up and down like a yo-yo, so it's kind of interesting to watch. But I really appreciate the people that subscribe, because obviously that means you want to see some of this stuff, which is nice to know, and it encourages me to keep doing it. So a lovely thing has happened, and I'm very, very grateful. The Bookish Bryant, so Scott and Becky, have asked me to join their co-hosts on a book event that's happening in November. So this video is all about that book event. So I'll talk about what the book event is in quite a lot of detail, and I'll put links to all the other co-hosts in the description, and I'll talk about the books that I'm going to be choosing between for my choices for the prompts. So yeah, I'm so grateful to be given a chance to co-host. It's very awesome. I took part in some of the events that Scott and Becky organised earlier in the year, and this year has been quite busy for me for book events, which has been really interesting. But I did put up a video a little while back. It was in late August, saying that I needed a rest from the events, which I did do. So September and October wasn't full of book events. And September I kind of did some catching up, and October I've kind of concentrated on horror for Halloween. So there'll be a video coming up soon about what I've been reading. But yeah, November is going to be New Worlds November. I've also got something happening in December, which I will be announcing in November as well. But for now, let's talk about New Worlds November. This is an awesome event that is all about science fiction, which is most of what I read, and it's an interesting one. Just like same as they always come up with some really excellent prompts, and there's usually lots of things you can bounce off. And same with Horror Mayhem and the Fantasy February book events. It's 4 prompts, but they've also added lots of other things as well. So it's really interesting. So if you want to take part, then these are the prompts. So one of the first prompt is terrestrial stories. So a story that is set on Earth. And by the way, they are looking for, or they advise you to read something short so you can get all the stuff in. So a short story or a short book, sort of 250 pages ish. That's what they recommend, so that you can get really involved in all the different prompts and the different challenges. So yeah, the first one is a book set on Earth, and then the second prompt is extraterrestrial stories, and that's about books set somewhere else on a different planet. And the third prompt is a classic book or classic story. So basically what they're doing is putting a cut-off point at 1965, which is when the new wave of science fiction started. So anything up to 1965 is considered part of this prompt. So anything that you find like that, which is quite a nice idea. And then the fourth one is about AI, robots. So any story or novella or novel, if you want to go for it and read really fast, on robots and artificial intelligence. So those are the 4 main prompts. But I've also got some extra challenges as well, if you want to. So there's 13 extra things that you can tick off, like a scavenger hunt kind of idea, and you can see how much you've done by the end of it. So the books that I've got planned do tick off some of these challenges as well, which is quite interesting. So I'll tell you some of those. So there's Alien Archeology, Alien Romance. I don't think I'm going to find that in one of mine. Translated works. If it's a work that's been translated into your language, then that's another thing. Alternate worlds or alternate dimensions. The far future. Military science fiction. Genre crossing. So, you know, if it's sort of mystery science fiction, or thriller science fiction, horror science fiction, comedy science fiction. So, genre crossing story. First contact, time travel, an invasion story, if it's humorous, a political story, so it could be an allegory, something like that, and something that has libraries in the plot or in the setting, which is kind of an interesting one. But they were saying in their announcement video that there's quite a lot of stories they've found where a library is a really interesting setting, or a librarian is an interesting character to bounce off. So they've got that one. And then one extra thing that they've also added, besides those challenges, is to go into a parallel universe, they call it, which is basically the idea of if you've read something that has been adapted into something else, like a graphic novel or a film or a TV show, then read that or watch that as well as part of the challenge. So that's so actually the things I've got, I don't know if I've got a lot of room for that. Don't think any of these have been adapted, but I don't know. Again, these are just ideas, but that's the prompts. So what I'm going to do for it is I've got more than one idea for each prompt, because I also want to, treat it as a bit of a mood read sort of situation as well, and pick what I fancy at the time as well. Don't like to be too restricted with these challenges. So on the first prompt, something set on Earth, I'm going to go with one of these two books. So either The Long Habit of Living by Joe Haldeman, and I'll just read the back. I bought a bunch of Joe Haldeman books recently. Everything I've read by him I've really liked. So, more even than space travel, the Stillman process has altered 21st century life. The most complex of medical miracles, it ensured that every 10 years or so, the ailing, aging body could be restored to youthful vigour and health. There was a catch, the cost. Every 10 years or so, you had to come up with £1 million minimum or die. For Dallas Barr, one of the oldest men on Earth, it was that time again. It was while he was casting around for that vital next million that he came across Maria, a woman from literally a previous life, and made two major discoveries. Not all Stillman immortals were born or created the same, and someone is trying to kill them. All of them. So The Long Habit of Living sounds really interesting. And as I said, I am becoming a real proper Joe Haldeman fan. And then the other thing I might read is The Silent Invaders by Robert Silverberg. So that's also set on Earth. I'll just read the back of that one. Abner Harris was sent to Earth on a mission of extreme urgency. The universe was in danger of enslavement by the Medlins, and the fight against them called for Harris to assume the disguise of a flesh and blood Earthman. But he discovered that the real villains of space were not the Medlins or the people of Earth. They were his own kind. Suddenly he was alone, alienated from his own race, hated by the Medlins, and an imposter on Earth. No matter what side he chose, he'd be a traitor. Yet choose he must, or forever remain a man without a planet. The Silent Invaders. So that looks really interesting. So those two are the ones I'm going to pick between for the first prompt. The second prompt is a book set or story set on another planet. So, A Possible Reread is my first one. But when I say reread, I read this 40 years ago. About 35 years ago. About 35 years ago. A long time ago. This is Death World by Harry Harrison. So Harry Harrison means a lot to me, as far as he was one of the authors that first got me into reading, that I first started reading. And obviously he's most famous for the Stainless Steel Wrap books, and I really loved them when I was a teenager. But I just think he's quite an interesting guy anyway, and he's written quite a variety of kind of pulpy novels, but also some really deep stuff as well. Most famously probably Make Room is an allegory book. But Death World 1, I think, is an action book and a bit more pulpy. But I'll just read the back. The planet was called Pyrrhus, a strange place where all the beasts, plants and natural elements were designed for one specific purpose: to destroy man. The settlers there were supermen, twice as strong as ordinary men, and with millisecond reflexes. They had to be, for their business was murder. It was up to Jason Denault, interplanetary gambler, to discover why pirates had become so hostile during man's brief habitation. So, yeah, there's 3 in this series, and I recently rebought them again. And yeah, so that could be the one I read for the one from Another Planet. And also I found this awesome vintage paperback from Theodore Sturgeon, which is Venus plus X. Possibly that might be 10, Venus plus 10. But yeah, I hadn't heard of this book, and I found it, snapped it up. I was absolutely sold on the cover. And I'll just read you what it says in here on the back. He was a stranger in the strangest new world ever. New world. He awoke to terror. He was in a silver cell, and all he could remember was his name, Charlie Johns. Later they told him he was in Ledom, a country where the people were wise and gentle and kind. They tried to help Charlie Johns, but they were strange. He could see it in many ways: their clothes, their overdeveloped pectoral muscles, the odd silky sporrans they all wore. But it wasn't until he noticed 2 of their men pregnant that he realised just how alien a land Ledom was. So a very alien setting for the second prompt about alien worlds. So the third prompt is a classic. So I've got 3 possibilities for this, and if you guys think, oh my god, no, you've got to read this, then they're quite different, to be fair. So I do go right back to 1864 with this one. So I might read Journey to the Centre of the Earth by Jules Verne. So yeah, might read that. It's relatively short, 150 pages-ish, 170 pages-ish. So yeah, could read Journey to the Centre of the Earth. Obviously, iconic book. I might go to 1960 to read Canterbury for Leibowitz. So it's a very famous book, but I'm going to read the back anyway, or some of the back. Where is it? The atomic flame deluge was over. The earth was dead. All knowledge was gone. In a hellish barren desert, a humble monk unearths a fragile link to a 20th century civilization, a handwritten document from Blessed Saint Leibowitz that reads, "Pound pastrami, canned kraut, 6 basils, bring home for Emma. Could this holiest of relics hold the key to humanity's salvation?" So an iconic book and something I haven't read yet, and it's been on my TBR to read, so this could be the one I read for the classics. But it's competing with a book from 1963, Clifford D. Simak's Way Station. So this Way Station, and again, along with City and Way Station are the 2 most famous Simak books. It was a resting point for the alien races that roamed the universe. Way Station. As keeper of the Way Station, Enoch Wallace was the only human privileged to communicate with the rest of the galaxy. He looked like any other man on Earth, except he was 124 years old and showed no signs of aging. And his house seemed like any other, though mysteriously impregnable. All was quiet around Enoch's isolated farm until someone raided the family graveyard and discovered an unknown horror. So that's pretty intriguing, to be fair. I will read this soon, and I could read this as part of the third prompt. And then the fourth prompt is AI and robots. And I'm actually building up to a video that I want to do early next year about robots and AI. And what I was going to read soon, which I could read for this prompt, is this awesome collection, this anthology I found called The Pseudo People. So one of the things that grabbed me was the fact that it's edited by William F. Nolan, who wrote Logan's Run. So I thought that was intriguing. And I thought, okay, an anthology about robots edited by William F. Nolan, tell me more. And I looked at who was in it, who the authors were, and you've got Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, Henry Kuttner, Chad Oliver, Charles Beaumont, Richard Matheson, and a bunch of others, actually. So look, there is definitely some more. Where are we? William F. Nolan himself, Dennis Etchison, A. Van Voigt. Oh no, he's just in the introduction. But yeah, looks really interesting. So I will definitely read some of this for the 4th prompt. But also, just jumping back to Harry Harrison again, I might read War with the Robots. So that ticks a couple of their boxes on the scavenger hunt actually as well. But this is a book I have not read by Harry Harrison, and one I could definitely include in the New Worlds November challenge. So there we go. That's the New Worlds November challenge. If you want to get involved, then obviously watch all the videos that the co-hosts and the Bookish Bryants are putting up to see what they're reading and kind of comment on their videos and get involved like that way. But it'd be really cool for you to say to the host and co-host what you're reading, and make this sort of that communal thing, which is what these events are. So yeah, awesome challenge, and massive thanks again to Scott and Becky for inviting me to co-host. I will let you know how I get on with these books as I go through the month, and thanks for watching. Bye.